Welcome back to Uncensored, now to UFOs and revisiting this topic. In fact, because this time last week we invited two experts on to talk about the recent congressional hearing in the US, which included testimony from a former intelligence official who claimed the US has possession of intact and partially intact alien vehicles. I actually asked to do this topic while covering the Seat for Peers because I find it really interesting. And last week's interview didn't go as planned. Sometimes in live televisions, that happens. We ran short of time to get to ask the questions I wanted. We got some feedback from the community that follows the guests that we invited on, that they weren't appreciative of the way we handled it. So we decided to invite the investigative journalist and co-host of the Weaponized podcast, Jeremy Corbell, back onto this show. Joins us now. Jeremy, welcome back. And just give me a sense of exactly where you think the interview didn't go the way that was hoped last time.
Yeah, Rosanna, I really appreciate you. I've heard that you are smart and that you listen to the public and that you are trying to report the news. So let's reframe this conversation. I think that you have been unfairly attacked on social media due to our last discussion. You know, I am mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. If you remember that movie.
I remember it very well, Jeremy. Network.
Yeah. Questions are weapons. And so that's why I'm back on. But let's talk about why I'm back on. Last time, it was like a Twilight Zone movie mixed with like The Wizard of Oz. It is like that film, Don't Look Up. I was sitting there thinking, what are they doing? Saying tinfoil hat. What are they doing? Playing the X-Files music. We are so far past that. But this is a battle for information right now. And I said, you know, so put on your battle helmet. So let's talk about that real quick. What I meant to try to talk with you about is that this is an international issue. And no matter what is found about this UFO topic, whatever the ground level truth is, this is the biggest story in human history. No matter what it is found that UFOs are or represent to humanity, they now call them UAP, no big deal. But I want to throw down for you right now so you understand, you might not be aware, there is a literal disinformation campaign by intelligence agencies to quote unquote shape the emerging UAP narrative. And they use stigma and sleight of hand, and your government is actually involved in this. And before today, really your network and you have been kind of unwittingly part of this problem. But as of today, right now, this conversation, your network, we are now going to make sure you are part of the solution because we're going to be talking about the facts of the UFO and UAP issue. And I am personally aware of the impacts of this last UFO hearing. Are you personally aware of the repercussions? What happened because of that UFO hearing, Rosanna?
No, I'm not. And again, this is the reason why I wanted to have this discussion, because I thought it was so rare and unusual to see Congress taking the issue of UFOs so seriously. In fact, let's play a clip from some testimony we had.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
Biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
Jeremy, give our audience a sense, if they're not familiar with this, because not everyone has the level of detail and insight that you and your followers have into this whole community and into the experts involved, who that person was.
Yeah, again, questions are weapons, so thank you for throwing that one to me. So you see on your screen, David Grush, a decorated military veteran who has served the United States and intelligence communities for decades. And this individual came forward under oath, came forward, and he said, look, I did an investigation. I had access to these special access programs. It was my job to look for misappropriation of funds, which is theft, related to UFOs and UAP. And he found them. He interviewed over 40 people that had direct firsthand knowledge of a cover-up of these UFO programs, exploitation, which means reverse engineering. So we got there in front of Congress, and for the first time in history, had firsthand people, two pilots, fighter pilots, Top Gun pilots, think Tom Cruise, one of whom engaged a UFO for the United States military. And then we had David Grush, and David Grush is a whistleblower about this theft from our governments financially to cover up this UFO exploitation or reverse engineering thing. And he just said there in that clip that there were biologics. He means pilots, non-human intelligence. Now, if that is true, whatever you want to label what he said, we need to find out if that is true. So we held this historic congressional hearing. Those three individuals testified under oath, and my mentor in journalism, George Knapp, and I, we submitted something for congressional record, 2 statements, and those statements were an assessment of the situation that has been going on for a long time regarding UFOs and the cover-up.
Let's give our audience a bit of a sense then of one of those pilots. You were saying it's almost like a sort of Top Gun person, a real pilot, Ryan Graves. This is what he said.
In 2014, I was an F-18 Foxtrot pilot in the Navy Fighter Attack Squadron 11, the Red Rippers. After upgrades were made to our jet's radar systems, we began detecting unknown objects operating in our airspace. During a training mission in Warning Area Whiskey 72, 10 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach, 2 F-18 Super Hornets were split by a UAP. The object, described as a dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere, came within 50 feet of the lead aircraft and was estimated to be 5 to 15 feet in diameter.
Now, that's some pretty interesting and serious testimony in my ears when it comes to this. And you talk it there about government cover-up, which is actually one of the sort of topics why we had this hearing. It's been also called, quote, administrative terrorism. You said the UK government is complicit in that. Of course, they're not here to give any kind of counter to that, but we're going to listen to your point of view on it or the facts that you've gathered. But the thing that sort of pricked my ears up over the last week when I've been receiving all this commentary online was this idea of Don't Look Up, which of course is that movie about people not taking climate change seriously, notably TV shows like this one. And I take climate change very seriously. And off the back of that congressional hearing, took UFOs more seriously as well. So what is it you need to do, you think, to get people to continue to take this topic seriously and see it for the interest that it has?
Well, I commend you, Rosanna, because this is what exactly we need to do, is bring people up to date with what we know, what we think, and what we're trying to find out. So I really like that you referenced that movie because this is nothing new. People have been coming forward for a long time. There's just now an official process to protect whistleblowers under a Presidential Protection Act. So this is legislation. And that legislation wasn't made out of a void. This is so people can come forward and say, I have been complicit in this cover-up about UFOs, that this has been happening for a long time. It's ubiquitous across the globe, and it presents not only safety of flight issues, but also issues with deployments, issues with nuclear weapons. This is well documented that there has been interference from unknowns, from craft of unknown origin that outpace, outmaneuver, and outperform anything we have in our arsenal, as well as the UK arsenal. And how I say and why I say that the UK is involved in this is because of the Five Eyes Alliance, because I released with my mentor in journalism, George Knapp, evidence and proof of this from Canada, that there is something called the Foreign Technologies Program, that is absolutely 100% working on these reverse engineering programs of UAPs. It's called the Foreign Materials Program, the Five Eyes Foreign Materials Program. And this was a minister, a parliamentary member from Canada that wrote this letter in deep concern. So this is something the UK, the US, the Five Eyes Alliances have all been working on. And this has been going on for a long time. So what has to happen now is we need to reduce the stigma. No more X-Files, no more tinfoil hats. Again, put on your battle helmets. What's important now is that we find out the ground truth on UFOs. We know UFOs are real. We know there are machines that are far more advanced than what we have. And this is nothing new. These have been reported before the Wright brothers went into the sky, before human beings had flight. This has been reported by pilots, by military. Some of these accounts, they go back to before there was even a Pentagon. So now we have to have this conversation soberly. We need to discuss the facts because our sensor systems, it's not just pilots anymore telling you this. The pilots are simply corroborating what's on their shared AI radar. This is something that's being picked up. This is something that we have corroborative visual evidence of, a lot of which I have produced and put to the public through leaks that came to me. They have been verified by our Department of Defense. So everybody, what you can do is start paying attention.
Keeping those eyes open and having sober discussion of facts, and taking a listen to some of those clips in the congressional hearing are fascinating. And Jeremy, it's been a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for making time to speak to us again.
Anytime. I really appreciate you. People got it wrong. You're doing your job. You're reporting the news. And this is the biggest story of all time.
Thanks, Jeremy.